All right, so we're looking at Triangle of Sadness, 2022 movie by visionary director Ruben Östlund from Sweden. And it won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. I heard about this movie while I was looking through the trailers for the Cannes Film Festival this year. And side note, I didn't see anything I liked. I think Cannes is the weakest of all the film festivals, to be honest. But it won the Palme d'Or, which is the big one. And I guess this guy had won the Palme d'Or before for another movie called Square. So he's got this kind of shape motif going on. And I watched Square too, and I thought it was boring. But I did like Triangle of Sadness. But maybe that's because I walked into it with kind of very low expectations, because I thought that this movie was going to be about what I was worried about. This movie was going to be kind of like a cultural critique, a political kind of a thing, right? All about wealth and equity and that kind of a thing. And I heard it was about like Russian billionaires on a cruise and this and that. And I also heard it was about the fashion industry. So I walked into it going, oh, I don't know what I'm getting into here. And I also thought for some stupid reason it was in French. It's not, it's in English. I don't know. That just goes to show, where my level of intelligence is at. But I was, we'll just say I was pleasantly surprised. It did have a social message to it, but wasn't preachy, and it didn't hit you over the head. And it's just sort of like a very kind of a light comedy. And I think you should watch it. I'm going to give it a recommend. I'm just going to start off by saying I recommend this movie. It's not great. It's not perfect. It's pretty superficial on a lot of levels. It brings up themes but doesn't really get into them, right? Which is fine, right? Which is fine. And I think we can all live with that. Now, where does the title come from? The Triangle of Sadness. Kind of sounds like, whoa, was it about the Bermuda Triangle? No. It's about this thing on your head, especially when you get old. That weird furrow of the brow that's referred to because we're initially introduced to the main characters, Carl and Yaya. They're models and Instagram influencers and that kind of thing. Excuse me. And Carl's at a photo shoot, or he's auditioning to be a model for something.
Everybody come closer together. Balenciaga's back. Ooh, fiercer than ever. We are stone cold. Yes. Oh my God, get away from us. H&M is here again. Yay! Balenciaga. And H&M. Balenciaga. And H&M. Ow. Everybody give it up for these guys.
And the guy says, relax your triangle of sadness, right? Or you look old and grumpy. So I mentioned it's directed by Ruben Östlund. So the stars are Harris Dickinson as Carl, Charlbi Dean as Yaya, Dolly de Leon as Abigail, Woody Harrelson as himself. No, he plays the captain. And my favorite actor in this movie, Zlatko Burić as Dmitri, the Russian, can't really say oligarch, but Russian millionaire guy, right? Capitalist. Like I said, I was worried it was going to be preachy or, have some sort of a message, but it wasn't. It was actually a very kind of a simple morality play. And it kind of seemed like a movie that might have been made in the 60s or something, right? Where they kind of get into things, but not too much. They don't really bonk you over the head with it. That's a pun. And so I'm going to recommend it. It's got humor in it. It's actually got kind of like gross out humor, like extended, uncomfortable gross out humor. If you're not a fan of that, you might not like that scene, and it takes up a lot of time in the movie. But it's not an action movie. It's kind of low budget, but not really. It's $10 million budget thing, and it kind of shows, in parts, but it's fine. It's fine. Go ahead and watch it. The reason I'm saying that right off the bat is because now I'm going to go completely into spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, go and watch it, and then come back like you ever would. So let's get into the movie. I've got so I'm going to get into the sort of the plot analysis, and what I think some of the themes and the more interesting parts, and a bunch of nitpicks, right? Because I have a bunch of nitpicks with it, but that's, you know, just generally me coming from a place of sort of, you know, I used to do a lot of camping, exploring and stuff, and I like to eat fish, right? I like a good fish, so my nitpicks will basically be upon camping and fish in general. So what's this movie about? So this movie's about Carl and Yaya. They're, like I said, they're a couple of models, right? Yaya is somewhat more popular or more successful than Carl, but anyways, they're not big names, big name models. It doesn't seem that way. It's very subtle, but I mean the scene kind of opens like one of the opening scenes when they're together is they're arguing over a bill. And Carl's like, why do I always got to pay the bill? And then there's this fancy restaurant and all this stuff, right? And, hey, you know, why, well, you know, just because I'm the guy, I got to pick up the bill and all this.
When you say thank you, honey, like that, I mean, you don't really give me an option but to pay. It's just an observation because it's something I've noticed.
And then it leads to kind of an argument and a fight. And she goes to pay the bill, but her credit card gets denied, right? So we kind of see, they might not be as well off as we think they are. They're arguing about money. And so it's interesting. It's sort of, so the film is broken into 3 acts. And this is the act 1. I think it's just called Carl and Yaya, right? Which I was kind of hoping was going to kind of get into more of the fashion world thing and what's going on there. Right, like I'm like one of the 5 people in the world who likes Neon Demon by Nicholas Refn. So I thought, oh, this would be a little exploration of the fashion world, because I think the fashion world is just inherently creepy. I think it's linked to a lot of other really creepy things. I don't understand it. I don't know why these people waste their money on this stuff or build up this thing. So I thought maybe they're going to get into that, but they don't really. And it makes sense in the movie because they're not big fashion models, right? I mean, they kind of are. But they're kind of low level. And Yaya does a show, and it's interesting. And I learned that this, what I found out is this Ruben Östlund likes to have little messages in the back. A lot of times in neon, like he did in Square. Things to think about. And so anyways, the reason I think they weren't really high-end fashion models, they're more like low-level kind of Instagram influencers and stuff, is because they are the surrogate for the audience, right? Because I guess they work something, or one of them works something, and they end up getting this free cruise. They get to go on this free cruise, right? Which is, I guess, supposed to be full of like the ultra elite rich people, right? You know, the Russian oligarchs and all that stuff on this, mega whatever luxury yacht, and they're only on it because they won tickets to it. They're not really part of that world at all, right? So they're us, right? Observing these rich people, right? And so that's great. And then we're right into the second act, which is on the ship itself. So the second act really has sort of 2 things going on, right? So one of the things we realize is that these rich people are kind of just like we're seeing at the beginning where have you ever seen Below Decks or whatever, right? About these mega luxury yachts, right? So the people who work on the boat, right, on the front end of the boat, dealing with the clients, I guess, or just told to say yes to everything. Say yes, say yes, say yes, right? Because you never know, right? Whatever you say yes for these ultra-rich people, you never know, right? You could just get an outrageous tip.
It's always, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. If it's an illegal substance they want, or a unicorn. Yes, sir, yes, ma'am. Yes. Woo. Yes.
Right. So one of the old rich ladies, I think she's, you know, the Dimitri's wife. Dimitri, like I said, is my favorite character in this movie, right? He's this old fat Russian. I want to say, I think he's supposed to be like a billionaire, right? But I mean, that's a nitpick. I don't think the billionaires would have their own yacht. They wouldn't be traveling around with other people. But anyways, and she's telling she's telling the staff, like, oh no, you gotta you gotta experience life. Life isn't about work. Life is about, you know, just doing what you feel like doing. And then she orders this worker there, this female worker she's kind of talking to like, just get into the hot tub. And she's like, well, she's kind of like saying, oh, it's kind of my job. I can't really do that. You know, I'm not really dressed for it. And then her tone becomes, no, it's sort of like, I just told you to do this. The way she does it is kind of interesting. It's not really threatening, but she's obviously not going to take no for an answer, right?
Have you been for a swim today?
No, not today.
Why don't you go for a swim right now? Because this is exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, that's so kind of you, madam. But unfortunately, we're not allowed to go for a swim during working hours, so...
I want all of the stuff to go for a swim. I want you all to go for a swim.
Also, while they're on the yacht, right, there's this millionaire guy who I think is he's some sort of Scandinavian actor. He's a bald guy, and he looks very timid, and the Russian oligarch guy and Carl, they're just sort of hanging out together, and they're watching this dude, you know, trying to like talk to women at the bar that's going on, and he's doing a very terrible job of it. But anyways, they humor him and they make him feel good, and you know, they just say, oh, come on, you know, and they act all sexy, and they take a selfie with him, right, on his phone. And he just feels just, you know, elated about this because, you know, that proves his, you know, that's something he could put on his Instagram. Like, look, I'm hanging out with these hot chicks, right? One of them is Yaya, who's a model. And the other one, it's either the Russian guy's daughter or his girlfriend. I think it's just his girlfriend. I think his wife just doesn't care that he's got this young girlfriend.
More boobs, Yaya! More boobs!
Thank you very much. Very generous. I would like to do something generous to you. They have Rolex watches in reception.
No.
We can go down there now and I will buy you Rolex watches.
No, it's okay, thank
You know,
you.
I would like... It may sound strange, but what you just did here, it meant so much to me. So I'm very rich.
So that happens. So there's that level of like, the rich people are just kind of like, they get to do whatever they want. And the people working on the boat have to basically do what, cater to their whims. And there's really no discussion of it. And then through little glimpses, we find out there's even a lower class than that of what I think are Filipino workers, right? So these are the chambermaids and the cleaning staff and that kind of thing, who live in a whole separate part of the boat, and the cooks and things like that. And so we learn that there's that, but they don't get to interact with the guests at all, right? So it's only the the sort of good looking, basically, they're all white. I mean, I don't think that's a really big deal, but they're younger, good looking. They speak the language and they have, whatever. So they're allowed to interact with the guests. And it all culminates with the captain's dinner, right? This is Act 2. This is the boat, right? So in Act 2, then we get introduced to Woody Harrelson, who's the captain, right? Now, Woody Harrelson basically, I mean, I hate to say it, but he kind of plays himself. He plays Woody Harrelson again. Captain Boy. He's got that sort of like, oh, shucks kind of thing that, he's been doing forever. And so the highlight, and he's an alcoholic, right? He's not only just an alcoholic, but then we learn, well, I'll hold off on saying what he is. So the captain's dinner starts and the weather is starting to turn on the boat, right? And it's pretty cool because they use, I forget what it's called, but they use a tilting stage, right? So when the guests are coming in to the captain's dinner, right, we see the captain and the first mate are like, leaned over, like they're propped over on one side because the boat is listing so heavily, right? And they're just used to it and they're sort of upright. It's kind of a cool effect. And a lady, some rich lady, who had earlier complained to, I guess what you would call the chief steward, right? That the sails were dirty. She noticed the sails were dirty and she did not. She thought that was she took offense to the fact that the sails of the boat were dirty. And the chief steward says, okay, we'll take care of that. And then so she complains to the captain, who informs her that the boat doesn't have any sails, right? So how could they be dirty? Maybe it was an awning or something that she was looking at. And this rich lady's like, no, right? No sails. And she thinks about it, and then she calls over her whatever super rich husband and says, whatever guy, tell him that the sails were dirty, right? And he's like, yes, the sails were dirty. And they're all like, yeah, okay, well, we'll make sure we get those sails clean, right? So sort of basically saying like, it doesn't really matter if what these super rich people say is completely insane. You just got to agree with them, right? They don't want any, their money and their power or whatever makes them right no matter what, even when they're completely wrong, right? They're always right. I guess it's sort of a take on the old saying, right? I guess the billionaire isn't always right, but they're always the billionaire, right? Kind of thing, right? And like I said, that's a nitpicky thing. I don't think a bunch of billionaires would be taking a cruise together. They would literally have their own boat. So maybe they're multi-millionaires, right? I think the Östlund guy wanted to go into the sort of the Russian oligarch thing, but I think he backed out. Anyways, the boat scene, the highlight of the boat scene is the captain's dinner, because now the boat's leaning over to one side and you can already see where this is going, right? The weather's getting rough, and before that they showed a scene in the kitchen where they're like cooking these just gigantic, like, I don't know, looks like some sort of carvery, some sort of a roast. I thought, oh, look, a nice roast beef dinner. So the boat's rocking really bad, and they're serving them weird things like, raw octopus and like kind of jellies that are kind of wiggly, these weird aspic jellies and all this very fancy food. But, you can kind of like, it's very sort of sensual. Like you can kind of go, man, trying to eat this kind of food on a boat, right? Where, that's listing back and forth on a small boat. This triggers everybody in the dining room to start throwing up, right? So everyone's puking. And this scene goes on forever. It goes on forever. They're puking and they're puking and they're puking and puking. One guy has a heart attack. So it's just completely gross thing with, just old ladies, all these rich people puking, all this stuff. And, during that, I should mention, See, now Carl and Yaya kind of don't really matter too much in this second scene. They're secondary to the rich people. But they get put on this table with this old couple. And they're like, oh, yes, well, we have a family business. It's highly, technical, precision and engineering and this and that. And then we find out, they're arms manufacturers, right? They're like this British arms manufacturers, and their specialty is the grenade. It used to be the landmine, but now they can't make those anymore, right? So you're kind of like, well, all right. I mean, and they're going like, man, should we even be seen with these people, right? Because they're Instagrammers. Everyone's throwing up. The boat's rocking. Oh, while this is happening and they're serving all the food, they bring the captain his thing, and he gets a hamburger, right? And he says, I don't really like this fancy food, which is kind of a good idea. And he ends up, I don't even know if he eats the hamburger, because all he does is start getting drunk with Dmitri, the Russian capitalist. And in the midst of everyone sort of throwing up, they're having this conversation. The captain's a communist, right? So he's a communist. So he's kind of spouting off this communist rhetoric. But basically, it's not even that deep. He's just saying quotes that other famous communists have said. And the Russian capitalist guy is just saying quotes from Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher. These, the famous capitalists and whatever have said, right? And it's like they're kind of like both playing at something, right? I mean, the one guy, the Russian at least, is a true communist or a true capitalist, right? I mean, he made his money. The other guy, Woody Harrelson, the captain, trying to be a communist. I mean, he is in a hierarchical scheme at the peak of a hierarchy that keeps certain people below decks, right? It's sort of untouchable and all this stuff, and certain people can interact with the rich people. Yeah, he's the guy who maintains all that, though he's an alcoholic. And he's just kind of spouting sort of general, communist things. The boat's going to shit. There's it's obviously going off course, or the storm's getting bad and everyone's throwing up. It gets even worse. The friggin' toilets start backing up and start barfing out sewage and feces out and everywhere, and people are falling down. I mean, it is pretty extreme. And I guess it's kind of funny, right? Maybe I think it's more of a kind of a Swedish funny, right? To see rich people throwing up and then falling into shit and slipping and sliding around in the shit. And, I think that's more of kind of a Scandinavian sort of a sense of humor, but I mean, what do I know? And then the Dmitri, the Russian guy, gets on still getting more and more drunk with the captain. They become buddies, right? Now they're drinking buddies, right? So I mean, that's kind of a statement in its own way that you have this communist and this capitalist, and they have their ideals that are basically based on quotes of other people, but in the end they're just a couple of bros getting drunk together. The Russian guy gets on the intercom, and then he's saying, "Alert, alert, the boat's sinking," right? And, does this stuff. He goes, "Ah, ha, ha, no, it's not." Meanwhile, people are throwing on their life jacket. They're getting ready to abandon ship. And then he starts saying this and that, whatever, about capitalism, and I'm going to buy this boat. And then the actual captain gets on and just starts going on this over the intercom. I mean, this might be kind of a statement, right? So the ship is sinking, right? The ship's in big trouble. It's not sinking, but it's in big trouble. And while this is happening and everyone's throwing up and rolling around and shit, he's on the intercom, saying, basically giving his Che Guevara speech.
Bobby Kennedy and John F. Kennedy, My government overthrew good, honest, democratic leaders of the people in Chile, Venezuela, Argentina, Peru, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Panama, and Bolivia, along with Britain. We carved up the Middle East, creating artificial geographical boundaries and installing puppet dictators. War itself became our most lucrative industry. Every bomb that's dropped, somebody makes $1 million. You don't have to know where those bombs are exploding. You don't have to see the grieving mothers and the mangled bodies of their children.
And blah, 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 blah. So it kind of like, it made me think like, it's sort of like, you know, Nero playing the violin while Rome is burning kind of thing, right? Like sort of like, you know, giving this grand speech while everything's going to shit, literally around them. I think that's what the point of that whole scene was, right? There's just a couple of drunks, you know, telling people their personal philosophies and, you know, trying to calm them with these, you know, stupid words that kind of don't mean anything in the moment, that are kind of irrelevant to what their current situation is, right? If the boat was, say the boat was current society, right? And it's going down the shitter, right? And then you just got some guy who, you know, in order to calm everybody, starts talking about, you know, the Marxist revolution and the, you know, the breaking the chains of the working class and stuff. Like, it's sort of like, yeah, maybe now's not the time. I really picked a bad time to record. Anyways, there's a parade going on outside. There's a Christmas parade going on. And everyone's honking their horns and stuff like that. So that just will add to the, if you can hear it, that'll just add to the ambiance of this review of Triangle of Sadness. I guess that's what we're doing here tonight on College of the Air. So where was I? Ship's going down, toilet. The captain's giving his little, you know, Che Guevara speech. And pirates. Then we see there's pirates in a Zodiac or whatever they're called, armed, and they're like, all right, let's get, you know, they're gonna go and hijack the ship, I guess, right? And they end up throwing a grenade onto the deck. They kind of come up, and there's like it's a weird shot. It's in the distance, and you're kind of like kind of some gunfire, and then I guess they throw a grenade up on the deck, and the old lady who's the, you know, from the family business of arms manufacturing picks up the grenade, goes, hey, look, it's one of ours. And, you know, that's kind of the joke. And then boom. And then I guess that's it. The ship's done from a grenade. Again, a grenade's not going to sink a ship, right? The weather, I'll show it. The weather and everything, who cares, right? I guess you're not supposed to think about this. And then we're into Act 3. Which is basically Lord of the Flies, Part 2. The legend continues. The life raft washes up on a beach. It just says several hours later, right? Life raft washes up on the beach. And the people who lived were the Russian guy, the rich incel dude. I don't really know what else to call him. Carl and Yaya, obviously, and the chief steward lady, sort of the boss of all the workers, and this black guy, who we've never seen before, and I think that's it. So anyways, they all wash up, and they're like, oh, whatever, you know, whatever, we lived through that, and I guess everyone else is dead, and this and that, and the Russian guy looks at the black guy and goes, hey, who the hell are you, man? Right? We haven't seen you before in this movie, right? And the black guy just goes, what, you think I'm a pirate just because I'm black? What are you, racist? You know, you think I'm one of the pirates just because, you know? And the Russian guy says, oh, no. It's just, I've just never seen you I didn't see you on the boat and all that stuff. Like, and he's like, I was on my break, you know? I work below decks. I work in the engine room. You know, of course you wouldn't see me, right? And then they notice there's not. So they're in like this sort of. Oh, and this one lady who's I didn't even mention, but this other woman who's had a stroke, and I don't even know what her point is in the movie, so we'll just not even talk about her. Maybe there is a bigger meaning to it, but I'm not even going to focus on her. She had a stroke, so she has to stay in the life raft. But there's also one of those big sort of rescue boats things. I don't know. I'll put a picture up of it. It's hard to describe. So they see it and they run to it, and they they open it up, and there's this one of the cleaning ladies there, and it turns out she's the toilet manager, right? Who must have had a hell of a night, right? And she's there, and she's got bottled water. Not a lot. She's got some bottled water, and apparently like some boxes of chocolate coated pretzels, right? In the life raft. So the chief steward lady, who is like her boss, says, okay, start hauling out. And she starts giving her orders like, oh, take out the water and distribute and bring out this and this and that. And she's just being boss lady while they're stranded on this deserted island, right? So what ends up happening is they get the water and all that, and then I don't know if it's that same day or the next day or whatever. Her name's Abigail. That's the Dolly de Leon. Dolly de Leon. I want to say Dolly DeLarge, like Alex DeLarge, but Dolly de Leon, who plays Abigail, is out in the water, and she's like, ah! And she comes out, and she's got this fish, right? And they're all watching her like, holy shit, right? You know, she caught a fish. She hand-fished a fish out of the ocean, right? She must have had some experience with it back at whatever in the Philippines or something like that. And so she brings the fish, and she's telling them, do any of you guys know how to make a fire? And so it's basically all these rich people and stuff, and they're like, no, I don't know how to make a fucking fire, right? So the point is, Abigail catches the fish. Abigail makes the fire. Abigail prepares the fish, and then she's got it, and she's got it in little chunks. I don't know how she cut it, but then she's dividing the portions, and she goes, okay, one for you, right, and one for me, one for you, and then one for me. So basically, she says, and then the chief steward lady is like, hey, what are you doing? You're taking basically half of the fish all for yourself, and you're just giving us whatever, right? She's like, yeah, well, that's just the way it is, right? I'm the one who caught the fish. I'm the one who made I did all the work. You guys didn't do anything, right? So this is mine, right? And that's yours. And I'm giving that to you, right? And then there's this, oh, no, that ain't right. That ain't right. We all got to work together. And, so these sort of dynamics, or sort of, civil dynamics are happening, right? And they end up agreeing, right? Then Abigail just basically says, look, I want you, tells the chief steward lady, right? I'm the captain now. She literally says it, right? Look at me. I'm the captain now. I want you to call me the captain. So she said, what am I? And the chief steward says, you're the captain. And everyone else, yep, you're the captain, right? So the toilet manager lady from the boat full of rich people now is the leader, right? The unquestionable leader, because she's the one who can bring the fish, and she's the one who can light the fire, right? Right? Perfect little morality lesson. Another nitpick. One fish. A fish for one person per day is barely enough to live off of. Not split between 5 or 6 people, right? But whatever, right? I mean, I'm taking it to that level of nitpicky, but who cares? It's kind of a comedy. It's a social comedy, right? So anyways, the Carl, this is crazy. Listen, it's not a convoy. This ain't one of those freedom it's a parade. There's a parade going on. I'm leaving it in. It's getting really close. It's not distracting at all. I want to go see it. So, so now now Abigail's set up as the leader because she's the one who's the provider and everything like that. But Carl gets in trouble because he steals some pretzels and he's an idiot, and he leaves the wrappers around, so he gets caught, and she makes him whatever. He's kind of like a little bit of an outcast. But then not long after, she tells him, well, you know, maybe I'll forgive you. So it kind of turns into this matriarchy. So while this is happening, and Carl is castigated for being kind of a thief with the black guy, right? But he doesn't get caught. Carl's the one who gets blamed for everything, right? And then Yaya takes Abigail's side. So now it's a matriarchy. And so then it turns into this girl power thing where it's like, yeah, now we're running the show and we're telling the guys what to do and this and that, right? And yes, we got a female captain. Now everything's going to be good, and we're all going to get through this. But it was like that night or the next day, and he doesn't get any food after that. So she won't feed him anymore. So while she goes and gets more fish, another fish, and splits it, he doesn't get anything. And then she says that night, she goes, I'll tell you what, so Abigail gets to sleep in the covered rescue vessel, basically by herself kind of thing. And then she starts saying, okay, Carl, you can come stay with me in the safety raft, right? In the safety vessel. And I'll give you fish, right? And he says, sure. Basically, he becomes her, like, trophy husband kind of thing, right? Because she has the power. So she gets to pick the man that she wants and to control, right? And so she even has the little emergency whistle when she wants to call him for sex, right? And she's an older woman too. She's an older Filipino one, so she's like blows the whistle, and he's got to come running and do his job, and then people start mocking him for it, right? The old Russian guy and the black dude, who it turns out he was one of the pirates after all, right? I'll just say the pirate guy. They start blowing the whistle just to like mock him and stuff like that, which is a very interesting thing. Because if you think like, wait a minute, if the roles were reversed, right? And Abigail was a man and Carl was a woman, you'd be thinking, I mean, it wouldn't be a comedy. It'd be sort of a very dark thing, right? It'd be very dark. But because it's reversed, it's kind of funny and light. But at the same time, it just sort of undermines the whole concept. It just, of basically, like, it doesn't really matter, right? About identity. Like, oh, you're a guy, you're a girl, you're this, you're that. If you got the power, you got the power. And the power basically dictates what's going on, right? Even to the point of, I guess you're sleeping with me now. And she even says to him, goes, tell me again why you love me. And he says to her, I love you because you give me fish. I love you because you give me fish. And she says, oh, that's the best. That's the best way it could ever be. That's the most beautiful way. Very weird. Right. So there's that. So now all about this beach scene. What I'm going to say is that my opinion, I think that whole sort of beach scene or living on the deserted island was underdeveloped in a lot of ways. I mean, it had the thing with I keep want to call her Dolly, with Abigail and Carl, but I think it was kind of underdeveloped. I think they spent too much time on the boat, and they should have spent more time on the beach. And I don't even know what the first part, why that was even there, to be honest. But, I mean, I guess it had to be there, right? So anyways, Yaya is jealous. She's jealous that, because now Carl's like basically like a lapdog, like literally like a lapdog. He's like sitting next to Abigail, who's, sitting in basically like the ruler. and he's like, you know, nuzzling up and sitting next to her. And but then something else happens, and they find a donkey stuck. I don't know. There was a donkey there, and it was in pain, or it couldn't move. And they figure, well, if we kill this donkey, then we got some meat. Then we're gonna eat, right? Now, here's another part of the movie of the nitpicky things, right? Because where on earth, on any deserted island, would you find a donkey and not think that there's people around? There's no wild donkeys, right? They're a domesticated animal. It'd be like finding a chicken, right? If you were on a deserted island and you found a chicken, you'd be kind of like, wait, where's the person who raised this chicken, right? Anyways, maybe they're just too dumb. I chalk it up to that they're just these bunch of, you know, rich people who are so detached from the real world that they don't make that connection. The incel, the Scandinavian incel, ends up killing the donkey, and now he's whatever, kind of the big hero of the moment, and Yaya makes a big display out of kissing him right in front of Carl, right? See, all this stuff just sort of happens, and I think it really could have been developed more. Anywho, it just turns out that then Yaya says, whatever, I'm gonna go, like, Carl's been sneaking her chocolate-coated pretzels. Yaya says, I'm gonna fuck off to the mountains, right? After talking to Carl while Abigail's watching. Now Abigail goes, no, I'll go with you. I'll tell you what, I'll go with you, right? I'll walk with you. And she's like, no, it's okay. She goes, no, I insist, I'm coming with you. And it's kind of threatening, because you're like, uh-oh, what's going to happen here? And they're walking up to the mountains, and even, you know, up this trail. There's a trail up the mountains, right? What kind of a deserted island has a trail? Anywho's, where do trails come from, right? She's carrying this stick, and she's like demonstrating her sort of like proficiency of flipping the stick and this and that. And you're like, uh-oh, she's going to just, you know, stab Yaya with the stick because she wants Carl, right?
I mean, you managed to run a fucking matriarchy, Abigail. You've domesticated all the old alpha males.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Carl doesn't really want Abigail, right? You know, Carl really doesn't want the middle-aged toilet lady, right? He kind of wants, I think he'd rather be with Yaya, you know, but whatever. And but it doesn't happen. They get up, and actually we kind of figure out, like, oh shit, the old lady's getting kind of winded and this and that. Turns out they find that there's a resort on the island the whole time, right? They were just on the other side of the island or whatever, and there was a big resort there, and, you know, whatever, they're all saved. But, I mean, nitpick again, and this is the camping nitpick or whatever. If I was stranded on an island, first I'd make a shelter or whatever. I wouldn't worry about food. I wouldn't worry about fish or any of that stuff, but I would definitely explore a lot to see if there was anyone there. I wouldn't just go, oh, fuck, I'm stuck on an island. And the other part of that is, and again, I mean, you can overlook it. The pirate guy was on the island with them, right? I don't know how it happened. Maybe his boat sank or something. But, like, he would be from around that area. He would actually know what island it is, right? Or he would know which islands were unpopulated and probably where the nearest populated island was. None of that made sense. It wasn't thought out very well at all. That ruins the whole movie, right? No, it doesn't. It's fine. That's not really what they're going for. They're just going for, like, power dynamics, right? You know, the poor toilet manager woman now is the king, right? Anyways, the movie ends. They get to so Yaya and Abigail find this resort, right? Or indication that there is a resort not too far away and everything's fine. And Abigail kind of gets this look like, oh shit, like I'm gonna have to go back to being the toilet manager. You know, we're here. I'm the king, and I've got the hot Instagram model, basically boyfriend, boy toy thing going on. I don't want to go back to that. But it's talking, and she's like, no, man, what a thing. And she's like, I'm going to stay friends with you, Abigail, and this and that. And you know, it's quite the thing we went through. And Abigail kind of warms up because Abigail's got this rock, and she's obviously going to try to, you know, because whatever Yaya is in the distance, she's obviously going to smash fucking Yaya in the head with this rock and kill her so she can keep the boyfriend. I don't know what her plan was, but, you know, people don't really think straight most of the time, especially living off of fish, off one fish a day. Not enough for even one person. But then she says, I'm going to keep in touch with you, and, oh, you know, it's the things we went together I'll never forget, and this and that. And I guess it kind of, Abigail's heart warms up. And then Yaya says, you know, maybe even when we get back, you can come and work for me. You could be my assistant, blah, blah, blah. And then what ends up, I mean, they don't show it. They just show the back of Yaya's head. And then they show Carl running through the jungle for some reason. But obviously, like, they don't show Abigail killing Yaya, but she obviously dead, right? The end.